than that, God has given us a king.
You're a fool, woman.
I've heard people say that he can raise the dead.
You don't really
Nobody can
believe
raise
that.
the dead.
Except God can
God,
do
I saw it
anything.
myself. He's no more a God than I
He
am.
raised Lazarus.
Raised Lazarus?
Rejoice, glory to God in the highest heaven.
Whoa, all of you worshiping a heaven maker.
Look at them and all of those palm branches. I was there myself. I didn't think it was spectacular.
Recall it exactly, woman. I want to know what they're talking about.
The man's name was Lazarus, a friend of Jesus. Jesus went to his tomb and he stretched out his arms and said, Lazarus, come forth.
What happened?
We were all watching when a mummy-like figure came out. It was Lazarus, live and healthy.
Ridiculous.
As you can see, the news is all over Jerusalem. They believe it. They don't care what you think.
How did he get people to believe this nonsense, raising a man from the dead?
The doctor said the man was dead.
Use some intellect, woman. You did say that this Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. Well, they decided to stage something to convince the people once and for all.
You will have all those same people disagree with you. They're a very strong faction.
Let this one man die for the people. Why should the whole nation perish?
What?
Nothing, just something I heard.
God bless you, Israel. He's our Savior.
Sir, stop your followers from saying those things.
If they keep quiet, the stones along the road will cry out. Oh, Jerusalem, eternal peace was within your reach, yet you turned it down.
Love. If we could shape love into arms and legs, we would have Jesus of Nazareth. The man is love. Why then did Judas and Peter deny him? Why were Caiaphas and Herod and Pilate so determined to destroy God's ultimate gift of love? They all had a free will. Why were there those who cursed Jesus and others who loved him in return? Free will. We all have it. And because of it, some are glorified and others are destroyed. You're about to hear the story of the Passion. Yes, you've heard it before. You've heard what happened. This time, you will hear why.
In the morning of the 6th of April, AD 30, Jesus told Peter and John to enter Jerusalem through the fountain gate. There, they would find a man carrying water. They were to follow him to his house, where he would show them a large upper room. The others would join them there at 7 p.m.
I have wanted to share this Passover meal with you before I suffer. But I will not eat again until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God.
The men in that room were average. Most were fishermen, some were merchants and tax collectors, and only about half of them could read. They were zealous and loving and quick to question the Lord and his actions.
Lord, are you going to wash my feet?
What I do now you don't understand, but you will later.
Lord, you shall never wash my feet.
If I do not wash you, you will have no part of me or God's kingdom.
Then, Lord, not only my feet, but my hands and my head as well.
Those who have bathed need only to wash, for they are clean all over. And you are clean, but not all.
These men would go out long after this night and teach others of Christ's love. Most would be executed for it. One such apostle was Peter, a fisherman with a powerful voice coming from a loving heart.
I was a man of 40, carrying on my fishing trade at Bethsaida. One day, my brother Andrew told me about a wonderful afternoon that he had spent with the prophet. The next day, as he and I were preparing to set out to sea, there, walking along the beach, was the man that Andrew had talked about. He was a man of about 30 years old. He called out to us, "I will show you how to fish for the souls of women and men." As the young man stood there, he said, "You are Simon, son of Jonah. You shall be called Peter." Peter means rock. And at that time, I was far from rock-like. He must have known it would take time for me to petrify to deserve the name. For 3 years, I followed Jesus. Not because of his miracles, because his words were that of a prophet. I knew who he was. I had proclaimed him to be the Master. Yet my boldness was like a boat without a sail in a strong wind. Useless. One day, when there were no fish to be caught, I ordered the nets to be folded up. But Jesus ordered us to lower them again. I protested. I was the professional fisherman. If there were fish to be caught, I would have caught them. But it wasn't a matter of fishing skills. It was a matter of pride. When we raised those nets and found them full, it was but the first time that Jesus would confront me over my shallow faith. I needed to be in control. I relied on God for words only, and on myself for actions. This would lead to my boast of this very night, that I would give my very life for him. The emptiness of that promise I can never forget. It is why later I wrote, "Be clothed in humility, for God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble."
In the years ahead, Peter would be arrested 3 times. He would grow old and then die crucified, asking that his head be turned down. John, one of the 3 apostles most loved by Jesus, was also the youngest of the 12. And since he was the youngest, he showed a child's blind faith and trust that many of his adult friends had long since outgrown.
I grew up in a Galilean village among sailors and fishermen. My father was a fisherman. He had me help my brother James with chores long into the night. In the dark, we pulled weeds from the nets, cleaned our bowls, and all we had for light were the moon and the stars. Total darkness is a special thing. In the 20th century, there are few places where you can experience it, even at night. But for us, there was darkness. I remember looking into the sky on those nights and thinking, was there a time when those stars did not exist? And where do they and I come from? 3 years before this night, my friend, the baptizer, shouted, "Behold, the Lamb of God!" He was pointing to this man who later invited me to follow him. I will always remember that moment because what I saw was a look of total honesty and complete understanding. I have many thrilling memories of my life with Jesus. My friends and I followed him from the temples to the stormy seas. But some of the best days that I've spent with him were those when he knelt along the roadside with the children, laughing at their stories and telling them his own. Then came the day when Jesus told us that he would have to go to Jerusalem to suffer and die. Now, less than a year later, his prophecy was moving toward fulfillment.
And this was the treasurer of the small group. His name was Judas Iscariot. Judas from Cariot. His father's name was Simon.
My Father loved me dearly. I know because he chose for me the finest name. He called me Judas. And Judas means praise of God. It would have broken his heart if he would have known that I would be remembered as the most vulgar person in history.
And as Jesus said, it would be better for that man had he never been born.
In a sense, he meant yes.
Why?
Because of a bad choice.
You tell me.
Who would listen? I'm alone in this.
You're not alone now.
I was brought up like others in Judea, taught to believe in the God of our parents. We were to obey the laws set down by the temple elders. We trusted those elders for their authority and wisdom. The priests were Jews like us who shared with us a common enemy, Rome. Nothing so strengthens a relationship than the hatred for a common foe. Palestine had been a protectorate of Rome for 93 years. We were taxed and abused by the iron hand of a city over 1,000 miles away. But we believed that one day we would see freedom. The Messiah would come, drive out the Romans, and Jerusalem would be the capital of the world. So you can see that as I grew up, I had interest in both spiritual and political matters. Then came the greatest day of my life. A rugged prophet from Nazareth came to me and said, "Follow me." For about 2 years, I lived with him and saw more love than I'd ever seen before. He could make the lame walk again and the blind see. He was popular and had power over the crowd. Anyone with that kind of influence ranked among kings. I could see glory ahead for all of us. But something would later destroy my dreams. Let me tell you how it happened. As time wore on, we were all plagued with doubts. At times, I found myself following him only because the crowd was so willing to follow. I had my own idea of what a Messiah should be. He should be someone who dined with emperors, not someone who wasted his time dining with tax collectors. We were all plagued with doubts. But Jesus knew that without the people to support my faith, I had no faith. In the months that followed, I tried to find fault in him. I even tried to convince him to go to the priest and explain our positions. I told him that if there were people in Jerusalem who wanted to destroy us, the best thing to do was to stay out of Jerusalem. When Peter tried to tell him this, he was called Satan. When Mary Magdalene anointed Jesus with her expensive perfumes, I shouted, "Those oils could be sold for the poor." Instead, he praised Mary. That was it. Out of anger, I went to those whom I could always trust. I went to the priest and made an agreement to force Jesus into the open. If he would make a fool of me, I would make a fool of him. For so long, he refused to heed my advice and cooperate with the Sanhedrin. Now I would force him to cooperate. We could march united against Rome, and all of Judea would have me to thank for it. I would be remembered in history. And now, the meal, here in the upper room. I came here with my clever plans.
Do you know what I have done for you? Since I, the master, have washed your feet, you should do the same for each other. You see, I have given you an example. No servant is greater than the master, nor is the one that is sent greater than the one who sent him. You know these things, and you are blessed if you live them. But I am not telling this to all of you. One of you here will betray me.
Lord, who is it that I?
It is the one I will give the bread to after dipping it into the bowl.
But Master, what if
Is it I, Master? You have said it. That what you must do, do quickly. Now the Son of Man is glorified. My dear friends, I'm only going to be with you a little while longer. I can only tell you what I've told the people. Where I'm going, you cannot follow.
And why can't I follow you, Lord?
Where I'm going, you cannot come, but you will follow later.
Why can't I follow you right now? I would lay down my life for you.
You would lay down your life for me?
You know I will.
Oh, Peter, let me tell you something. Between now and tomorrow morning, when the rooster crows, you will declare 3 times that you don't even know me.
Never!
Lord, you can't leave. Don't be afraid, Matthew. Trust God and trust me, for I am going to prepare a place for you. You will follow me in time, for you already know the way.
But we don't, Master. We don't know the way. Show us.
Yes. I am the way, the truth, and the life. If you know me, Thomas, you know the Father.
Show us the Father, and we'll be satisfied. Yes, Master.
Don't you even know who I am yet, Philip? Even after all this time?
Stay with us.
Yes, Rabbi, please.
If I do not leave, the Holy Spirit will not descend upon you. The greatest love is when a person lays down life for a friend. My friends, this is my body, which is broken for you. Take it and eat it. This cup, which is poured out for you, is the new covenant of my blood. Take this and drink it in my memory. As a branch cannot bear fruit without the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. For I am the vine, and you are my branches. In me you can bear much fruit, but apart from me you can do nothing. Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that he may glorify you. Keep in your name those you have sent me. As you sent me into the world, I sent them into a world that hates them. I don't pray for these only, but for those who believe in me through their word.
The meal ended with the singing of a song. Anxiety and sadness were, for the moment, forgotten in the fervency of prayer. Jerusalem was quiet now. At 8 p.m., this metropolis of God seemed to be deserted. The streets, now clear of people and animals, were covered in darkness. However, one figure could be seen, and this was Judas. After he left the upper room, he went north a street or two and came to the house of Caiaphas. The servant maid Malchus was at the gate.
Just a moment.
I wish to see the high priest.
He does not wish to see anyone. Come back tomorrow.
He'll see me,
Who are you?
a friend of the Galilean.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just tell Caiaphas I'm here.
Wait right there.
And Judas waited. He doubted his actions now, but this he soon forgot when he considered the favor he would win with the chief religious leaders in the Jewish faith. At 8:30 p.m., Caiaphas came to the gate. Enter Joseph Caiaphas. Now, here was a man whose appearance was always nothing less than regal. He looked sincere and intelligent to any onlooker.
By what right do you expect an audience at this hour?
So Jesus and some of his friends are sitting at the Pesach this very moment.
Where?
In a house by the fountain gate.
Are you telling the truth?
Why would I lie? You mean him no harm. You promised me that.
You'll take us there. Wait in the courtyard. I will summon Annas to the council.
As a child, Caiaphas was raised in the best tradition of religious training. But by the time he was appointed high priest, he seemed less spiritual. But Caiaphas could not afford to admit his faithlessness at the time.
Of course not. For to be a genuine hypocrite, one must at least play the part of sincerity.
Well then, Inquisitor, you admit your weakness.
Definitely. The man who occupies this office must be a holy man. Though I was, as you say, faithless, it was my duty to keep the interests of the people as well as their relationship to Yahweh close to my heart. The people looked up to me as the interpreter of their faith and obligations. The Jewish faith was like no other. We believed in oneness. We wanted only one God and one nation. At the center of this faith was the coming of our Savior. Throughout the years, the people had built an image of what the Messiah would be. The Jewish Savior would be grand. When Moses was grand, he freed us from Egypt, so someday our Messiah would free us from Rome. Now, there were many men who came out to the street corners to claim they were the salvation. I am the Messiah, they shouted. It was common. So I made up a special crew to go out and interrogate them in public. It was not my goal to locate our Savior, but rather to strike down anyone who might build up a strong following. We could not have our people being influenced by someone outside of our temple. For example, 6 years before this night, Pontius Pilate had a special cohort who was given permission by the emperor to fly banners that displayed figures of Caesar. Well, this was a noble gesture on Caesar's part. It seemed to me that not only was Pilate winning favor with Rome, but with my people as well. This was a threat to my influence over them. With the help of Herod Antipas, we rallied the people against Pilate. We convinced them that these banners were some sort of violation of Jewish religious law, and it was just another example, at best, of Rome's insensitivity towards the Jews. We weren't sure it would work, but the idea was simple. Make the citizens strongly believe in Rome as their number one enemy, and anyone, good or bad, was in the right as long as they opposed them. It worked. The crowd made their demands, and Pilate removed the banners.
So you can appreciate how he felt about this Jesus and his preaching. As high priest, it is my duty to announce our Savior. But the people created such a frightening image of him. Well, Jesus was popular. If I was to point to him and say, "Behold, our leader," well, the people would follow him and not me. I had to send my crew out to ask him questions in the hope that we would make a fool of him. Instead, he made a fool of us. You pretend to be holy with all of your long public prayers in the streets while you're evicting widows from their homes. Oh no, it didn't bother me to hear him, but I was worried because the people could hear him. There is nothing concealed that shall not be known. Well, this was a threat. I then called a meeting of the Sanhedrin, and we argued for hours. Some said Jesus was a true spiritual and loving man. So I again used Rome. I convinced the priests that Jesus was not really an enemy of the temple, but an enemy of the Romans. And any followers of Jesus would be crushed by Pilate. I said to them, "You idiots! Let this one man die for the people. Why should the whole nation perish?" That was my logic. So, Jesus must die. A political execution? Of course. But you must remember, Jesus brought this on himself. For he dared to speak the truth. And he must have known that one day he would have to pay the price. Then came the day he entered Jerusalem, with people showing their support and devotion by waving ridiculous branches. Well, my father-in-law pressured me to act quickly, but I didn't know what to do, because if I did, the people would riot. Then that man Judas came to me. He wanted me to cooperate with his friend and master. Well, I put on my usual show of dignity and holiness, and it worked again. We closed the deal with him, and there was no turning back.
It was midnight when Jesus and the 11 left the upper room. They settled in an olive grove on the road to Jericho. Jesus had taken them there often, so none of them thought it was unusual for that late hour. The moon was almost full, and its brilliance lit up the scene as though it were daylight. A boy named Mark led them to the Garden of Gethsemane, which is across the Kidron Valley and is an orchard. It's bounded on two sides by a high wall, with the other two sides bounded by a deep ravine. This boy Mark, whose father owned the house with the upper room, opened the gate to admit them and returned home.
My soul is sad to the point of death. Please wait and watch.
Jesus withdrew from them. Even to this day, a rock remains near the gate, where tradition says the apostles found a resting place. Jesus was alone.
Father, I pray for those that follow me. Forgive them, for they are frightened and very cold. I've said so much to them. I've tried to tell them the truth, your truth about life, mercy, and love. It's up to them now. Give them the strength to endure these hours to come. Did I fail? I know I can do what you ask of me if I finish my duty here. And I didn't fail with Judas, did I? Oh, he must feel so alone too. Father, if it can be done, let me not go through with it. I'm frightened. And it's so very cold here. Stay with me. I don't want to be alone. I can stand the pain if I'm not alone. I didn't fail. I'm ready now, Father. Take me home. Peter, are you sleeping? Stay awake and pray, all of you, that you will be strong. For the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Simon! What is it? Pastor Philip, it's been a raid on my father's house. When? Just now. There were men, lots of men carrying clubs. They were looking for Jesus. Somehow they knew that you dined there tonight.
How could they know that? Judas. Who were these men? Did they say why they were there?
No, but there were some men at the temple there too. They wanted the man who claimed to be king.
The temple? Were there any Roman auxiliaries?
I don't think so. Just some temple guards.
Okay, stay near the gate and keep watch. They won't come here, will they? I don't know, Andrew. The streets were quiet when we left. What if they did come here? Followed us before. Carrying clubs? We must get out of Jerusalem. Why? Our master promised us safety here. We would not have been safe if we stayed in that upper room much longer.
Wake up, boy. Let us through.
No one here.
We'll see about that.
Let me go! Let me go!
Stay here with him.
Friend, why have you come?
That's him. Arrest him.
Judas, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? Who is it you are looking for?
Jesus of Nazareth.
I am he. If it is me you want, let these men go unharmed. Peter!
Arrest them all.
It is me you want. Now let them go.
It's a trick. I'll take him. Get out.
You bastard! You're responsible for all this. You told them we were here.
Let me go, you ignorant fisherman. Why can't you use your brain?
You betrayed him.
Listen.
You dog. Why? You turned him over. What's going to happen to him now?
Listen to me. Can't you understand that if he is the Messiah, he will triumph?
The master said you were betraying him.
You have no idea, none of you, about what's being said about him in the temple. But I know. There's talk he is a false teacher.
Better set the
Andrew, Philip, come back. Listen to me.
Where are they?
They're gone. Why didn't they listen to me?
Because you turned up your heel at their master.
But I didn't.
You're alone now, Judas.
No.
Yes, your friends are gone.
Shut up.
Who will listen now?
Idiots. They don't understand. You don't understand.
What don't we understand?
Why I did it.
Why did you do it?
I told you to help him. He's got to tell him who he is. They only want to talk to him. They'll all see that he means them no harm.
Oh, so you think the priests will understand?
Yes.
Well then go! Go to the high priest's house and see just how much understanding is going on.
Now there was turmoil in the streets. Word spread quickly that the prophet had been arrested in the garden. Running down a now crowded alley, Mark, the boy disciple, was trying to make his way home.
Mark, where are you going?
I'm going home.
What's happened? I heard they arrested him. Is it true?
Yes, I was there when the temple guards took him away.
Where was this?
In the garden, by the road.
Well, where are the others? Well, where's Peter?
I don't know, I left in a hurry.
All right, you go on home and stay there.
As a prostitute, Mary of Magdala suffered scorn from her neighbors in Capernaum. But Mary was hard to remove, and added to her fighting spirit was the fact that she had money, and plenty of it.
As a child, I was very lonely. I wasn't even very attractive. I was laughed at, teased, and even worse, ignored. So when I chose my profession at the age of 16, I would have plenty of men who would tell me that they loved me and that I was special. I also had money, enough to buy the best lip rouge and perfume. All of these things I kept in a box. That box became my most prized possession. In it were not only my trinkets and my makeup, but my self-pity and vanity as well. This treasure would assure me that I would never be lonely again. One night, a man came to me. He said, "A friend of yours was in town this afternoon, and he takes it upon himself to forgive sinners." This was the first I had heard of Jesus. The next day, I met others who had seen him face to face, and they spoke of his love for the outcast. The outcast. In my heart, I could feel some hope. So I decided I would meet him, no matter how difficult. I asked people where this Nazarene would be, and I found he was dining with Simon the Pharisee. So I followed the crowd to Simon's door. I forced my way in, pushing past servants and guests, until I came to where he was seated. You will never know the feeling I had at this very moment. For the first time in my life, I saw true love. I saw a love in his eyes that was real and without demands or conditions. I was so overwhelmed by Jesus that I fell to my feet. And I cried harder than I had ever cried before. I took a jar from my small box, and I anointed his feet with the perfume. I wanted to take the contents of that box, all the pity and the vanity, and give it all to the man who had come to forgive my sins. But Simon reminded me of who I was. "Woman, this is no place for you. Leave quietly." But Jesus spoke for the first time. His words, I will never forget. "Simon, when I came into your home, you did not give me water to wash the dust from my feet. Yet this woman has washed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. That is why I tell you that although she has sinned greatly, her sins are forgiven because she has loved greatly." He passed his gentle hand over my hair and said, "Daughter, your sins are forgiven." He kissed me on the forehead, and I left quietly. After that moment, I knew my life had changed. For the first time, I knew what it was to be truly loved and forgiven.
At 3:30 a.m., Judas entered the courtyard of Caiaphas' house. A guard was at the gate.
Where is he? Did they bring him here?
Get out.
I must see Caiaphas.
I said get out.
What's all this? Who are you?
A friend of Jesus.
Oh, yes, of course.
I must be with Jesus. Where is his meeting with Lord Caiaphas?
Meeting? Oh, there is to be no meeting.
What?
There is going to be a trial. Your Jesus has to answer many questions.
No, I was wrong to turn him over. The man is innocent.
You've helped our people, Judas. You deserve our gratitude. I hope this won't be too offensive to you. This is for your services.
All right, now, you got what you came for. Now get out of here.
Judas, with coins in hand, sat down that night, now truly alone.
It all began so happily. Judas, follow me. I remember a time when I wasn't alone. So many times he took us. his closest friends to that garden by the road. So many times. There was a peace there I'd never known before, and one I didn't feel now.
And invading the quiet peace of that garden came a mob armed with clubs. Friend, why have you come? He knew. Jesus knew why you were there, but he wanted you to put your betrayal into words so you could see just how diabolical your sin was. Instead, you kissed him.
In my pocket, I carried the coins that read, Jerusalem the Holy. I could still hear Jesus' warning. One of you will betray me. He knew all along. He tried so hard to warn me. What shall it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And the smile of Caiaphas when I said, I bring you good tidings. And the song of the children on Sunday, Hosanna. The foul threats of a mob. His washing my feet and my tasting of the bread. 2 years ago, I met him, loved him, and followed him.
And then you had your own plan for him. Judas, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?
Matthew, Mark, and Luke all tell how bitterly Peter cried that night. Do you think I did? Do you think I wasn't alone? Where I sat that night, the sands before me were wet with my tears. I then went to the priests. They wouldn't leave me alone after I'd helped them. I have sinned, I pleaded. I have betrayed an innocent man. They only looked at me and laughed. What is that to us? See to it yourself. I was alone now. I chose to abandon God and follow the people. But the people weren't there. I took the money in my hands. This was one act of madness that did not relieve me. I was at the great crossroad. Peter would be in the same place only hours later. To the right was Jerusalem and a loving Jesus. Peter went there and found the peace of forgiveness. I didn't find it, not because God refused me, but because I didn't ask for it. Instead, I took the road to the left. It led to a tree in the valley, and death by my own hands. Remember me, Judas. Praise of God, who also betrayed the Christ. My life will never be an inspiration to you, but it must always remain a powerful warning.
At 5 a.m., Jesus was brought to Annas, the former high priest.
Caiaphas was not the most important man in Palestine, and no one knew this better than Caiaphas himself. His father-in-law, Annas, was a maker and breaker of men. A man so great, few dared to cross him. A man so powerful, his frown could cause sleepless nights for the priests, Herod, and Pilate, too. Annas kept the temple business as a private industry. It was his men who sold the lambs and doves on the temple grounds. Now you understand why he had a personal bid in the arrest and conviction of a man who overturned the tables in the temple and disrupted business for hours.
Are you Jesus of Nazareth? So, you are the man who has people stirred up from here to Galilee. What is it then, Jesus? Why do you hate our leadership here in Jerusalem? How many people are following you? I understand you may even have friends here in the temple itself. Can you name them?
What is your message? What are you telling the people?
I have always spoken openly for everyone to hear. I have taught in the synagogues, where the Jews have gathered together, and in secret I have said nothing. So why do you question me? Question those that have heard me. They know what I have said. You even have some among you.
Is that any way to answer the high priest?
If I have done anything wrong, then make a charge against me. But if not, why do you strike me for just telling the truth?
If our brother Jesus refuses to cooperate, this hearing is ended. Guard, bind the prisoner and take him to Lord Caiaphas.
The night air was now growing chilly, and the people covered themselves with their coats and built a fire in the courtyard of the high priest.
I'm telling you, someone said a trial.
I don't believe it. What has he done?
Some crime against Rome.
I hope he gets away.
You had better be careful what you say around here.
Believe me, he won't get away. They've got a lot of charges against him. Why, only a miracle would save him from death.
Death?
He is a miracle worker, isn't he? Maybe we'll all get to see a miracle tonight.
Listen, they don't have anything
You
on
there,
them.
by the fire.
What is it?
The Lord Caiaphas has given me orders to round up some witnesses for a trial.
A trial?
Is that man from Galilee going to be put on trial?
Impossible. The high priests don't have the authority. They can't just put a man on trial.
That's right.
All the same, that was the order. The high priest would like all of you to remember just how peaceful life was before the Galilean and his friends came. He wants all of you to call for justice when the time comes.
Don't you threaten us.
Peter, what is all of this? He said there's going to be a trial.
Mary, what are you doing here?
I must go to him. I must see him.
You can't. He's been taken inside to see the high priest.
I don't care. That has not stopped me before.
Mary, trust me. There is nothing you can do for him.
Where is his mother?
Staying with Martha for a while.
I'll go to her. She will need me.
Listen.
You were with him, weren't you? That man they took away.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
You speak like someone from Galilee. You must have come with him. He was with the Galilean.
Leave me alone! I told you I don't know the man.
I recognize you now. You were with him in the garden by the road. I saw you draw a knife and strike my brother Malchus.
I don't know him!
Don't you worry. We'll be at your trial.
At about 5 a.m., members of the great Sanhedrin gathered at the house of Caiaphas for an unusual night session.
I'm just concerned that there may have been people who actually saw that arrest.
It was done quite carefully. Don't worry.
And I'm sure caught them off guard, for they were sleeping when we got there.
Any trouble with them?
Very little, my lord. One of his friends drew a knife, but my brother had a sword drawn by them.
Good. Good work, Malchus. Oh, I was told you were wounded.
Yes, sir.
I'm terribly sorry, but you can see the doctor before, I promise you.
Excuse me, Your Excellency, but this Jesus. Well, I've never seen anything like it. It is true the man called Simon Peter cut my ear, but Jesus came over to me, and there isn't even a scar.
Fool! We have no time for your idle lies. Now bring them in. A little excitement and that idiot hallucinates.
Nevertheless, I think we can use him.
How?
We could get Malchus to testify that Jesus and his friends produced weapons.
No. Any mention of Jesus healing his wound in our case would collapse.
No, he won't say a word. We can ask him what we want to hear and silence him before he says anything else. Besides, I'm afraid we're going to have to deal with worse than that in these proceedings. People who have claimed to see miracles. But remember, you have the authority to call a halt to any contention.
Yes, I remember.
hearing should last no longer than you would allow. There are rumors that Brother Joseph and Nicodemus have had personal contact with the prisoner. Their emotional appeal could be damaging to our case. I would expect you...
With all due respect, sir, I can handle Joseph and Nicodemus and any other disruption. In other words, I don't need you over my shoulder throughout the hearing if you don't mind.
You've been handling your position quite carefully so far. Don't ruin it for yourself now.
Yes, sir.
Good. Then we'll have it understood that I will be at this and any trial by the state. In other words, over your shoulder. And here they come now. Let's keep this short, shall we?
Brethren, we have before us Jesus of Nazareth. He is known throughout Judea as a priest, prophet, and Messiah.
My Lord, the people...
I want to make it clear to all of you the importance of this hearing. This man is charged with a serious offense. The prisoner did on several occasions proclaim himself to be the Messiah, the true Son of God. And in doing so, has blasphemed against God and profaned the temple. Tell us then, Jesus, what is this doctrine you've been spreading in Judea and in Galilee?
Well, my Lord Caiaphas, the people are beginning to believe that this man is a prophet. How can we allow that to continue?
We can't allow it. A man is not a prophet when he condemns the leadership of Judea.
He has charged that if we swear by God's temple, it means nothing to us. But if we swear by the gold of the temple, then it is binding. We have many witnesses who have heard him say this, even in the temple.
If it's a witness you need, there is one among you. Joseph, you must know this man has condemned our leadership. I have met Jesus before. He spends his time with the sick and the poor. He recognizes their devotion and their piety by pointing out the evils of the wealthy. Are you willing to vouch for their integrity?
Brother Caiaphas, I find this inexcusable. It is this kind of disrespect that is sweeping the countryside. Not only has this fraud divided us and set us against one another, but he inflames the mob against authority.
We can't afford that in these troubled times. Why, we have evidence that Jesus has rallied the extremists against Rome, and that they were planning to... People see him as the king of Israel. We'll sweep out the Romans.
And what would happen if the Romans were to hear these rumors? If Rome began to think that we could not control our own people, there would be even more violence in the future.
We've seen enough bloodshed.
But he's not some political activist. Jesus takes no concern for earthly authority. He says his authority comes from God.
From God? Well, of course he does.
So have hundreds before him like John the Baptizer.
His authority is his own, Nicodemus. Don't confuse pride and political ambition with divine power.
Have we considered the possibility that Jesus of Nazareth may very well be the Messiah awaited by our people?
What will you use as proof? Oh, please. A carpenter from Galilee? Perhaps the fact that he fulfilled the prophecy by riding into Jerusalem on a donkey? Behold, thy king come, sitting upon the foal, the beast of burden.
From what the people tell me, he has done many things just to fulfill the prophecy.
And it's all a trick to gain the confidence of fools.
But I have heard him preach. And like my brother Joseph, I've been with him many times. He even raised a man from the dead. No political mind fanatic can have the power.
Watch out! This man is a fine magician, Nicodemus. Nothing more.
The coming of the Messiah is the center of our faith.
And it's our duty to announce our Savior, not choose him to fit our...
Brethren, please! How could this have happened to us? We have not come here to debate among ourselves, but to make a charge against a man who has been the cause disorder. Disorder in the streets, even here in the Sanhedrin. We have witnesses who will testify against this man and give support to our charges.
Even if your paid witnesses have seen miracles, hundreds have seen him give sight to the blind.
Yes, I've heard these rumors, but there is still no evidence that these men were blind in the first place.
And all these things he did on the Sabbath day.
That is hardly blasphemy and not a capital crime.
The point remains that he shows no respect for the teachings and traditions of our forefathers. And if women can testify to this, well then
Our law states that a minimum of 2 witnesses be present for any given charge. There are women, and it would only be repeating rumors. These people, Your Excellency, will testify that this man's threat against our leadership.
Step forward.
My lord.
I have heard this Nazarene say, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.
I don't have to remind you that any threat against the temple is capital blasphemy.
I also heard him. He clearly told the people that he would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 4 days.
There. 3 days, 4 days, they can't even remember.
How can they remember everything?
I'm afraid they'll have to. This man threatened to destroy the temple. Maybe he meant us. After all, we are the temple. He was seen dining with prostitutes. Why, even one of his friends is an unclean Jew working as a tax collector for Rome. This man threatens to destroy respectability. He's dangerous, Brother Joseph. Defending him means your own destruction.
And not only us, but this man threatens the safety of the entire nation when people like Barabbas and the Zealots rally for the temple against this man and his factions.
And since the Romans wasted little time arresting Barabbas on our feast day, why, they will look at any excuse as an excuse to attack our people.
Don't tell me what the Romans have done to our people. I've seen Jews nailed to the very walls of Jerusalem because there weren't scaffolds enough to satisfy the Roman lust for blood.
Therefore, is there anyone here among us who wished to give Pontius Pilate still another victim if we can help it?
But what exactly is the nature of this man's teaching? In the name of the living God, I ask you to tell us if you are indeed the Christ, the Son of God.
I am, as you have said, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power of God.
No more. He has condemned himself. We are the witnesses. For this, there can be but one penalty: death. Take him to Pilate and have the death penalty confirmed. Take it, hold him in state custody.
they had to rise. The Passover brought nearly 250,000 additional Jews to attend to, and this was not an easy task. Enter Pontius Pilate.
Welcome, Prefect, welcome. I come here to find Jews assembled in the streets, guards without weapons, and no one at the gate to escort me into the city, and you say welcome.
Well, I'm sorry, Prefect, but you see, there was some confusion in the night.
I'll say there's been some confusion.
I'm sorry, Prefect.
It was not often that Pilate left Caesarea. His Roman capital for the administration of Judea was civilized, unlike this religious center for all the Jews. But it was his duty to tolerate the Jews and show strength by his presence here in their religious center. But Pilate, when he was not angered by the Jews, was a most level-headed governor. He conducted most of his affairs with the greatest of tact and diplomacy.
Excuse me, but I beg to differ with you. You give me too much credit. Oh, surely I was able to play the political games of Rome. After all, I obtained the office of governor by saying the right things to the right people. I was in that office from 26 to 36 AD, and since my province contained the largest number of devout Jews, I was commissioned by Emperor Tiberius to uphold Jewish law. Therefore, I was bound by the duties of my office not only to serve Rome, but also the interests of the people of Judea. But I was a Roman, so to the Jews I represented a colonial nation worshiping idols. The Jews demonstrated their devotion not to their governor, but to the priests of their temple. They saw Caiaphas as one instituted by God to serve the people. And they saw me as one instituted by Caesar to serve Rome. I had to hand it to Caiaphas. He had successfully turned the people against me. If it hadn't been for their blind faith in Caiaphas and his family, I might have remained their governor for more than 10 years. The truth, however, has a way of being hidden by those it offends. Nevertheless, I am the most famous Roman of them all. When figures like Tiberius are forgotten, I will be remembered. For years, millions have proclaimed he was crucified under Pontius Pilate. I am famous because I met a scruffy beast of burden and sent him to the cross. Now I have this repulsive immortality. I would have nothing to do with him in life, but I am linked with him forever in death.
Enter the tribune. Because the tribune was the commander-in-chief of Jerusalem, Pilate saw him as the city's mayor.
Welcome, Prefect. I must apologize. Who is this Barabbas?
Barabbas, sir?
Are you deaf, man? The mobs keep shouting his name. Something about the death penalty.
His case is on the docket. Rome versus Jesus Barabbas. He killed one of our guards. We have a strong case against him, so there's little doubt we'll get a conviction.
Good.
We've also arrested 2 highwaymen. They robbed a group of pilgrims on their way to this holy city for the Passover. They even killed some of their women and children.
Any trouble getting a conviction?
We have witnesses who are among the few who survived.
Good. Now, will either of these cases affect my position with the people?
Sir?
If any of these men are popular with the people and I sentence them to death, the people could rally against them.
Barabbas is a member of the Zealot party.
A political figure?
The man on the street already thinks of him as an insurgent terrorist.
Does he have any friends in the Sanhedrin?
No, sir.
If Barabbas were executed, would the people riot?
Well, I really couldn't say, sir.
Can we avoid finding out?
Well, it is the Passover. So it's a tradition at this time for the governor to release a prisoner that the people want free. That way, you leave it up to them, and you don't have to make any unpopular decision.
It's times like this that Jewish law can let me off the hook.
Before you release Barabbas, I think you should know there's another name the people have been shouting in the streets. A preacher named Jesus of Nazareth.
How does this concern me?
Jesus was arrested by the Sanhedrin and brought to us on a charge of blasphemy. I guess Jesus blasphemed against the Jewish God one way or another.
So have I, one way or another. Tell the Sanhedrin I'm not interested.
But Your Excellency, this Jesus is harmless. He hasn't caused us any trouble. But his preaching aggravates the temple authorities, and they won't let you turn your back on him.
Would it be best to try the case and release him?
Yes, sir. We would then hear the last of him.
But Jewish law states that only one prisoner can be released at the Passover. What about this Barabbas?
Well, Barabbas may be popular, but so is Jesus. If the crowd had a choice, they'd rather have a preacher on the streets than a known murderer.
So the charges against Jesus amount to blasphemy.
Well, Caiaphas says our charge would have to be treason.
Blasphemy or treason, which is it?
Well, according to Caiaphas, it's both. But he was not being honest. You see, I have some information that may explain why the Sanhedrin are so insistent on a speedy trial. Just this last Monday, we heard some confusion in the temple area. I took a squad of men to the outer courts, but by then it was too late. Jesus had a whip in his hand and he was striking the merchants and driving them out of the temple. Their animals were driven into the streets.
What?
And the dove dealers lost most of their merchandise when the cages hit the pavement and broke open.
Did Jesus say anything?
He said, "My Father's house is for prayer. You have made it a den of thieves." He then stormed into the stalls of the money changers and pushed over their tables. The coins clattered across the courtyard.
What else did he do?
There was nothing else to do. Business had stopped completely. He simply ridded the place of commercialism. And he chose the worst possible season. This is the holiday rush, so this is when the merchants make most of their profits. If you don't mind my opinion, sir, Jesus had the right idea. That temple area was beginning to look like a Persian market.
I should say so, or a zoo.
I couldn't agree more. But Jesus was, there must have been temple guards everywhere.
Oh, there were. But remember, Jesus was furious. The temple guards were smart to stay clear of his whip. As for the merchants, they were busy chasing their precious animals, and the bankers were collecting coins and counting losses. Besides, the Sanhedrin wouldn't have dared arrest Jesus. There were a lot of people milling around, and Jesus is popular with them. If the guards tried to arrest Jesus, the people would riot.
What if there were no temple guards? Would you have your men stop the prophet?
We would have been awfully slow about it.
You're a good man, Tribune. You seem to recall that most of the concessions in the temple are owned by Caiaphas and Annas. I wish I'd been the one to break the news to them. I'm very sorry, brethren, but some Galilean completely destroyed your entire day's profits. I'm afraid you'll be fasting a little earlier this Passover season.
Oh, Jesus insulted them too, Your Excellency.
He insulted the priests? When?
Several times. He once called them blind guides of the people, hypocrites, even whitewashed tombs. Nice outside, decaying inside.
How did our temple leaders take to that?
It didn't matter. The people, remember?
Yes, I see it now. Little wonder they had him arrested. He's a thorn in their side. Caiaphas had better not come to me for help. For once, he's on the hook, and I can relax and watch him squirm. Yes, this is one Passover I think I'm going to enjoy.
From inside the palace could be heard a muted scream, barely heard from outside the walls. A frightened reaction to a dream. A nightmare. That combination of truth and grotesque fantasy of which morning dreams are made.
Are you quite all right, ma'am? Yes, I'm all right. Well, is there anything I can get you?
No. No, thank you. Rebecca, wait. Yes, you can. I need a messenger here.
I'll get one immediately.
From Pilate's private apartment, Claudia Procula could hear the noise of the crowd. In her dream, she saw Pilate fall victim to the angry crowd. And And when she awoke, she feared this trial so much that she had to warn them.
Let the message read, Procula to Pilate. Keep your guard closely about you, and have nothing to do with that innocent man. For I have suffered much today in a dream because of him.
Would there be anything else?
No.
Thank you, ma'am.
As Roman marriages went, ours was proving a success. With our 10th anniversary nearing, a time when it was quite fashionable for each partner to be halfway through a second marriage, Pilate and I were remarkably happy. His trial as governor had tested our love, bringing stresses which I in my sheltered life had never known before. But facing them together deepened our relationship. And we needed each other in this far-off province of Judea. Pilate was a realist and a religious neutral. I was the sensitive, imaginative idealist. But what held this polarity in balance was not simply romantic love, which had begun to fade long ago, but a flexible mutual understanding necessary when two people commit to one another for life.
At 8 a.m., the governor nodded to his tribune to send the temple authorities to his office. But the tribune reminded him that it was a Jewish holy day, and the priests were not allowed to enter the house of a heathen. Pilate had little choice but to meet them here in the trial room.
I understand you've already briefed the Tribune on the charges against the defendant. Unless I need stand corrected, the charges remain as blasphemy against your God.
Yes, Your Excellency. This man perverts our faith. He says he is the Christ, the anointed one sent by God.
Keep in mind that any infractions of your law, of your religion, are not an issue in this court.
Why?
But when Jesus calls himself the Anointed One, he makes a claim to kingship. Our law explains that the terms Christ and King are one and the same. And if you recall...
Very well then, take him out of this court and judge him according to your law.
That is not possible according to our law, and you know it. 4 years ago, we had the legal right to execute, but since you have then removed that right, but only under the stipulation that you would usually endorse our verdict in capital cases.
Capital cases? Did Jesus ever instruct people to take up arms against Rome? I take it then that Jesus takes no stand against Rome. In that case, Jesus is nothing more than a religious fanatic, and since fanaticism is not a crime punishable by this tribunal, I'll give the orders to release him.
Your Excellency, this Jesus is guilty of the worst possible crimes and should, under the law of Moses, suffer the penalty. He calls himself the Son of God. Surely your Excellency can understand.
His Excellency is not interested in your religious riddles.
It is not a riddle. It is a firm insult to the entire nation. This Jesus is nothing more than a self-appointed revolutionary. He is a threat to Roman order.
If he were not a criminal, we would not have brought him before you.
Governor, he has already broken a Roman law.
Which law?
He calls himself the King of the Jews.
Has he made this claim clearly, or is this your interpretation of something he might have said about being anointed?
Before many witnesses, he has made this claim to be King of the Jews.
And he has told the people not to pay their taxes to Caesar.
That would be treason, would it not, Tribune?
It would indeed, Your Excellency.
Very well, bring him to me. see for myself what this man has to say. Are you Jesus of Nazareth? Come here. Closer. Your chief priests of their temple have claimed that you have told the people not to pay their taxes, and are claiming to be king of the Jews. Are you king of the Jews?
Are you asking me this on your own? Or did they tell you about me?
Why, of course. What? Am I a Jew? Your chief priest brought you here. What have you done?
My kingship is not of this world. If it were, my followers would fight to defend me. But my authority as king comes from elsewhere.
So you are a king then?
You are the one that calls me king. I have come into this world for this reason only, to bear witness to the truth. Only those who know the truth and live the truth hear my voice.
A kingship of truth, you say? What is truth? Who are you? I understand neither him nor his words. But there are no grounds for condemning him to death. Guards, take him and give him a token flogging. That ought to tame him.
Pilate, why do you refuse to condemn this man? Anyone who claims to be king is speaking treason against Caesar.
I can understand your reluctance, Prefect. I mean, after all, you've only just seen the man, and he does appear harmless enough. But trust us when we tell you he is a born troublemaker. Why, only last Monday he broke into the temple grounds and interrupted the people at their worship illegally. He was like a crazed lunatic when he came in and caused a riot. He took a whip and began striking the people. He even overturned the exchange tables at great financial loss to the temple. Now, you may not be concerned over what happens in our sanctuary, but one day this temple robber may disturb your provincial finances in the same way.
But that's nothing compared to his effect on the people here in Judea. He even has followers in Galilee, where he began as a political agitator.
Jesus began teaching in Galilee?
Yes, but in recent months
What is his hometown?
He came from Nazareth, of course, but lately I understand he has been lodging at Capernaum.
Both Nazareth and Capernaum are in Galilee, are they not?
Yes, but these charges...
Your Excellency. Then Jesus is a Galilean, and that places him under the authority of Herod Antipas. And since Herod is in Jerusalem at this very moment, I think it proper to remand this case to his jurisdiction.
But Prefect, Jesus committed these crimes in Judea, which gives you the legal right.
You seem rather well informed regarding Roman law. Perhaps you could counsel me on Jewish law. Do you not have some set of rules about the treatment of a murder victim?
Well, yes. Our tradition requires that we kill a heifer, wash our hands over the murdered victim, and shout, "Our hands did not shed this blood."
Just as I remembered.
But how does our holy law concern a Roman?
It doesn't. Don't force a Roman to lower himself to such ludicrous ceremony. I leave that option to Herod. A Jew can also judge those religious crimes of your prisoner far better than I. This tribunal is adjourned.
Of jurisdiction? He assumed Pilate knew that Jesus was a Galilean. It never occurred to Caiaphas to send the case on to Herod. His only consolation now is that Herod was in Jerusalem at the Hasmonean Palace, which was close to the temple.
Jesus is a Jew charged with a religious crime in Jerusalem, to which we added a crime against the empire. How then could Pilate send him to Herod? His jurisdiction is confined to Galilee. Besides, the Sabbath is approaching, and Pilate knows that this holy day cannot be defiled with an execution. If Jesus isn't put to death now, his followers will organize themselves and force us to release him. Pilate is postponing deliberately so that nothing can be done on this day.
But there is still time to get a conviction from Herod.
Oh, don't be a fool! A conviction from the Tetrarch would be impossible.
Well, Herod has shown more sensitivity to Jewish law than Pilate. You told us yourself earlier of Pilate's cooperation in the case of the banners displaying figures of Caesar.
That was 6 years ago. Since then, Herod finds that in the eyes of his people up there in Galilee, he is guilty of murdering that baptizer. And this has seriously damaged his public image. He may not want it damaged any further by dealing with this case at all. He may even choose to defend Jesus as a fellow Galilean. If Jesus isn't stopped now, his proponents will rally by the thousands against the temple, and that will lead to bloodshed.
The young apostle John went to Mary Magdalene, Martha, and Mary, the mother of Jesus. Someone had to tell her. So this was a special assignment which John had taken upon himself. He knew that Mary had heard from her son what would happen to him. But not even the words of the Messiah himself would stay the grief in the heart of the mother.
Did you talk to Jesus? What did he say?
He told us, the time has come for the Son of Man to be delivered into the hands of his enemies.
Where did they arrest him?
We were in the garden when the temple police came.
Where is he now?
The last I heard, the Sanhedrin was taking him to Herod. They want him to sentence Jesus.
Have they hurt him?
They were careful not to harm him.
John, there was talk of death.
I want to go there.
No!
I want to see him. It's too dangerous. The crowds are angry. We could be recognized and we could be arrested. Martha, they don't want me. John, please take me there.
But they want to execute him. Surely you don't.
John, don't worry. I won't add to his grief. I was with him when he drew his first breath, and I want to be with him when he draws his last.
Argument, however polite and logical, would do no good. Mary will go to Jerusalem. King Herod brought his court down from Galilee 3 days before the Passover. It was 9 a.m. Friday when he heard the announcement, and he welcomed the opportunity to meet the man who once referred to him as the fox. Enter Herod Antipas. The term fox was suitable, for King Herod, like all other Herods, was underhanded and deceptive. He was a coward and a murderer. But of all Herod's wrongdoings, there was only one he regretted, and this was John the Baptist. He had been reluctant to kill him, but he promised his daughter Salome anything within his power, and she wanted the head of the Baptist. Now Herod was about to meet the man who, in his eyes, resembled John the Baptist. Oh, he could atone partially for what he had done to the Baptist by sparing the life of this preacher. In any case, Herod was eager to see Jesus.
Thank you, honored rabbis, for your presentation of this case. Actually, I am familiar with Jesus of Nazareth, but I've never met him. Jesus, would you come forward? I've wanted to see you for some time now. There you are. Several times I looked for you in Galilee. You probably thought I meant you harm. But I didn't. I just wanted to see this new king everyone is talking about. You wear rags and you go without shoes. Yet you call yourself a king? You look no better than that mindless cousin of yours, the baptizer. And yet he didn't have the effrontery to call himself majestic, nor could he perform miracles. Now you can, I understand. Well, I've never seen a miracle. Why not show us one now? Maybe you were able to fool the people all this time, but you won't fool me. I can see through tricks. But if you were to perform an actual sign for us now, wouldn't that show some credibility? Well, answer me!
Do you know why he won't perform wonders, noble Tetrarch? Because he can't. The things people claim to have seen are merely well-rehearsed tricks.
And according to your flawless logic, that would make Jesus a false prophet.
How can the people of Galilee think this man is a prophet? Ridiculous! Guards, take this magnificent commander back to Pontius Pilate.
Did the Tetrarch say back to Pilate?
He did, and I waived my jurisdiction over the subject, since most of your accusations focus on events in Judea. Let the prefect of Judea judge him.
But the prefect of Judea remanded this case to your tribunal.
And I'm referring to his. Do you suggest I don't have the prerogative?
You most certainly do.
Then I would suggest, Rabbi, that you escort him back to Pilate.
I think you've forgotten that you have a responsibility.
Galileans can be judged in Judea if they break the law in Judea. Besides, those charges of yours, which involve Jesus calling himself a king, are something for Rome to adjudicate. Not I.
You have a responsibility to the temple and to our cause. We've had enough delays. Don't make this simple case last any longer than it should.
I am sure you'd rather I defer these proceedings. What? I might have acquitted him entirely, rather than returning him to Pilate.
You made a fool of yourself with that wilderness preacher. Don't think you can make up for it now.
Brethren! Worthy Tetrarch, you have cooperated with the temple most admirably in the past. The people of Galilee, as well as Judea, have noted this cooperation and fully support you and your judgments. They now want your cooperation again. Don't disappoint them by failing to condemn a man who blasphemes our most holy faith by calling himself the Son of God.
Most honorable Caiaphas, this tongue-tied wretch deserves our sympathy and not our stoning.
But the man has political power.
Just remember, I didn't set him free. If you still believe that this man deserves punishment, you may resume his trial before the governor at the point where you left off.
No, we don't have time.
Very well. This court is adjourned.
The Sanhedrin now had little time to design their case for a Roman court. Their case was a small one, and they needed to make it bigger to intimidate a Roman governor. The people were fired up in their behalf, but if the case dragged on one more day, they might begin to sympathize with Jesus. So Pilate had to act now. The communication reached Pilate at 10 a.m. He had sensed Herod would react the way he did. He had refused to settle the case and had sent it on to the king of the Galileans. Only now it had returned to his doorstep, and he was going to have to judge one way or another.
Thank you, Tribune. Bring them in.
Pardon, my prefect, but I think you should know a crowd is gathered in front of the palace.
How many?
It's hard to say. I'm sure most are friends of the Sanhedrin. Shall I send for reinforcements?
Yes, but keep them out of sight.
Yes, sir.
crowd outside grew larger, but Pilate assured himself that the 10th Legion would have been able to handle the situation.
Your Excellency, a message from your wife.
You have brought the defendant before this tribunal on a charge of blasphemy. But after personal and public examination, I did not find him guilty of any of your charges. Neither has Herod Antipas, for he has referred the case back to me. Even if he has committed infractions of your religious law, Jesus of Nazareth has done nothing to deserve death. Keep a guard on him.
Yes, sir, but wouldn't it be better?
Don't argue with me. As long as he is my prisoner, nothing's going to happen to him. I see you've organized the crowds rather well. Again. But this also means that if the people get out of hand, you will answer for the consequences. Now, in order to preserve the peace, I ask that you withdraw the charges against this man, since they have not stood up in court. Such a gesture would effectively end this hearing without my being compelled to declare the defendant innocent.
Your Excellency.
It was obvious the governor wanted no blood from the prisoner to stain his hands. So he finally found a solution, another way out. It was prompted by the Jewish calendar itself.
It is the Passover, a time of clemency. According to a custom of yours, I am to release one prisoner to you. Whom should I release? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus of Nazareth? Barabbas! Then what am I to do with Jesus of Nazareth? You, I'm trying to save your life. Why do they hate you? That crowd won't be stopped by you and your friends alone. You'll need me to keep them from you. What have you done? Speak! Don't you know that I have the power to either set you free or turn you over to those who want to kill you?
You don't have any power over me. Any power you have has been given you by God to carry out God's plan. Therefore, those that have brought me to you have the greater sin.
Why do you seem resolved not to enter any defense for yourself? Who are you? If this crowd continues this rabble, I'll have my guards remove you by force. Tribune, bring him forward. Behold your king! Crucify him yourself! I find no fault in him!
Pilate was desperate. He had exhausted all means to set the prisoner free.
I tried to find a way to let him go, but there was one man in the crowd who knew how my mind worked. And at the critical moment, when everything hung in the balance, he cried,
"Noble prefect, this man claimed to be a king. If such cardinal blasphemy goes unpunished, you would be admitting his kingship. Therefore, if you set this man free, you are no friend to Caesar."
There it was, the charges against Jesus raised to the highest level of appeal, to that of the emperor himself. The charges I could see before me: disobedience to the emperor for failing to uphold Jewish law, and criminal neglect of duty for failing to punish someone who claimed to be equal to Caesar. I could have been summoned to Rome, or even put to death. It was his life against mine. And so I decided. I turned toward the prisoner and gave my final plea. Jesus of Nazareth, have you anything to say in your defense? Jesus of Nazareth, have you anything to say in your defense? Jesus of Nazareth, have you anything to say in your defense? Hear me, people of Judea. This court cannot pronounce Jesus of Nazareth guilty, but because your great Sanhedrin has condemned him to death, and since your Roman prefect must respect and protect Jewish religious law, the prisoner will be crucified. My hands are free of this man's blood. Let him be crucified.
Soldiers took Jesus into the courtyard and made him shoulder a wooden beam, which, to form a cross, would be fastened to one of the upright stakes already standing at Golgotha.
Pilate watched the ordeal from his balcony until he could stand the sight of innocent blood no longer. He had condemned a man to death, a man he knew was innocent of any capital offense. Pilate had to make a decision, and so he made one.
And a wrong one, you say?
Well, don't you agree now?
You were here. You saw what I tried to do. You saw what I was up against.
And your reason for condemning an innocent man to death was because you might have to answer to your superiors in a city over 1,000 miles away.
My life was at stake. And forgive me, but many of you of the 20th century have given up my prisoner for less than that. A moment of sin, an hour of pride and selfishness. You may throw stones at me if you will, but damn it, your hands ought to be clean when you pick them up. When I made my decision, I set my feet on the road to everlasting fame and eternal shame.
After that Friday morning, he didn't sleep very well. He suspected that I had more than a smoldering interest in the new faith. So I hid it to avoid confrontation. As for him, belief in a faith centering on a man he had executed was more than he could bear. A grotesque hurdle for him. Pilate was a religious neutral, and had always been. But now I, as a Christian, saw that our polarity was no longer in balance. Pilate could not accept the fact that Jesus Christ would forgive all. We need only ask. Oh, my dearest Pilate, our love had met its ultimate challenge, and our marriage failed. In the meantime, I will pray for you.
After another 3 years in Judea, I was recalled to Rome and replaced as governor by Publius Petronius. Procula would eventually leave me. I was exiled to Gaul and committed suicide. What is truth, I said. That was a rhetorical question for me. I thought there was no such thing. When I came to Judea, I thought I was a man of peace and dignity. After all, I told the Jews that my desire was to bring it to them. But were these only words? Did I have courage to admit weakness? Did I have faith in my own human dignity? These doubts only created a dictator that denied them their human dignity. Was this part of his truth? He said he had come to speak of it. But look where it got him. There are those among you who carry their faith beyond mere words and are silenced on their own Golgotha. Over the years, nothing changes. We are all the same. You may send him off to some Herod of your own, but he will always come back to you. As Jesus said to us, those who know the truth and live the truth, hear my voice.
The struggle among my people was how to live according to God's teachings. So you, as Gentile Christians, should be grateful that you have been led to the one true God through the Jew, Jesus the Christ.
Many of the apostles would be scattered that day, but there would come a time when they would give back the love that had been given to them.
I was with his mother, Mary, when she went to the hill. He raised his head toward his mother and said, "This is your son." And then he looked at me. "This is your mother." I wish you could have been there with us at that moment. You would have seen total darkness, that special thing. But our King was there, a star of light, breaking through the darkness caused by the clouds of betrayal and death.
I don't know him. Oh, I felt alone that night. But my risen Lord appeared to me on Sunday, and he assured me that my sin had been forgiven. I was a middle-aged man, yet my life was just beginning because I had finally learned to become obedient to God. I was at that last great crossroads, and I chose the road to the right. It led to Jerusalem and a new life of peace in my risen Lord.
All of you can look back now and examine the choices we made. You can decide who was right and who was wrong, and how you would have done better. Well, the crowd on that Friday morning made their choice too. They decided to turn against a man because it was popular to do so. And yet, only 5 days earlier, the crowds had welcomed